Welcome, everyone, to the March 16th, 2026 Ashland Conservation Commission meeting, which I am calling to order at 7 o'clock p.m. There is a quorum of the commission present, and before we open up our first hearing, I have to make a few protocol announcements. My name is Greg Wands. I am the chair. This meeting is being held live at the Town Hall at Ashland, and it's also being recorded by WACA Cable. If there's any interruption in the WACA Cable signal, the meeting will continue. This meeting is also being held live by Zoom, and before we get started to our first hearing, I have to make a pre-meeting statement regarding Zoom. Under Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 executive order, public boards are allowed to meet remotely. This order was most recently extended until June of 2027 by Governor Healy as part of the supplemental bill signed in March of 2023. Please follow these procedures for attending and participating. The meetings of the Conservation Commission will be held using Zoom. As I identify the item on the agenda, the applicant for that agenda item will be given an opportunity to provide a presentation and will be allowed to share the screen to show plans, pictures, etc. At the end of the presentation, the chair will entertain questions and comments from the commission. When the commission's discussion has concluded, the chair will open up discussion from the public. Upon the hearing or meeting conclusion, a motion to continue or close the hearing will be entertained. After any discussion, the chair will call for a roll call vote. During the meeting, commission members will keep their video on and microphone muted unless speaking. We have two members of the commission who are online right now using the Zoom application. Applicants and representatives, please keep your video off and microphone muted until your agenda item is discussed. Public, please keep your microphone muted until recognized. If you need to share your screen, you may request permission through the chair to do so. When the discussion is open to the public, if you wish to ask a question or make a comment, you may request to speak by using the raised hand feature on Zoom. If you are calling in by phone number, you can use the *9 feature to raise and lower your hand. When acknowledged to speak, please state your name and address prior to speaking. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Comments must be limited to the Wetlands Protection Act, Ashland Wetlands Protection Bylaw, or Ashland Stormwater Management Bylaw. Questions and comments not related to the Commission's jurisdiction will not be accepted. During the meeting, the host, our Conservation Commission agent, Becca Solomon, will monitor the participants for raised hands and will be recording the names and addresses of commenters. Signing of documents occurred during the week after the conclusion of the meeting. I will also acknowledge Michael Carter from GCG Associates. He's a peer reviewer and he's online, and we will be hearing from him. So I have 7:05 p.m. I am going to open up the first hearing. Notice of intent, 61 Waverly Street, map 15, parcel 12, the Gutierrez Company, DEP file number 95-1016. And before we hear from the applicant, I'm going to turn the microphone over to the Vice Chair, Carl Hackinson.
Thank you, Greg. We've been asked to do a summary before each one of these hearings for the benefit of the citizens that are watching this, both in the room and on WACA and over Zoom. These hearings tend to be multiple evenings, and so sometimes it's easy for the viewers to get lost. It's also easy for them to get lost because of the technical nature sometimes. So I'm going to give a quick review of 61 Waverly Street, and then we'll hear from the applicant. Again, this is a 40B application. It has been before the Zoning Board of Appeals already for a comprehensive permit. It's now before the Conservation Commission. The local bylaw has been waived by the ZBA, so we are enforcing state law here at the Conservation Commission. Our jurisdiction is limited to that. This particular application has offered to acknowledge our 25-foot no disturb zone from the local bylaw voluntarily. A little bit of the summary here as this hearing began at the beginning of January. I believe it was January 5th. It opened with a discussion of the parameters of how the hearings would take place. We did a site walk in January that was very productive, I think. We requested a peer review both for the wetlands and the stormwater, so it was two separate peer reviews. Beals and Thomas did the first wetlands peer review. There was one iteration of that. They made some changes that the applicant agreed to. The stormwater peer review was a little bit more involved, and I believe that there were 4 iterations of the stormwater peer review that has been worked through between the commission, the applicant, and our peer reviewer, Mike Carter. We'll address the remaining issues of that this evening. Then we decided to sequence the topics of discussion, and the topics are going to be different for each hearing, depending on the nature of the property. And for 61 Waverly Street, it was divided up into the bedrock, discussion of the bedrock, discussion of the peak runoff for stormwater, and the structural integrity of some of the areas that the stormwater is draining to. They were our 3 major topics of discussion over the next few hearings. The wetlands discussion is settled. The bedrock discussion is mostly settled. I think we have, at least I have, a couple of outstanding questions for this evening. And the stormwater discussion is making progress. The infrastructure discussion is making progress as well. And those were the most outstanding between the last hearing and this hearing. I believe that we have come to an agreement, but we will see soon. So is there anything I left out, Mr. Lopez?
No, I thought that was an excellent summary. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I will say that the applicant has made a number of changes to the plan, quite a few actually, and I won't go into all of them. There were 45 suggestions in the first GCG review, but the 2 major ones that are really outstanding are the agreement to increase the size of the infiltration basins significantly to hold stormwater on site, and to replace the 12-inch pipe that connects the 2 storm drains on Waverly Street, where a lot of the stormwater is going. We had a discussion about the culvert that this pipe goes to. That was an issue while there was still an increase in peak runoff. Subsequent, we will hear that this evening, I believe, between Mike Carter and the applicants working together, they have changed the size of the infiltration basins to allow for no increase in peak volume, therefore no impact on this culvert. So I guess that's all I have. Greg, if you want to.
Sure, Mr. Lopez, do you want to take us where you're at? I know that there's been significant progress, and we've gone down from 45 to just a handful now of comments to address. Yeah.
Do you want me to? 1 second, Mr. Lopez. Do you want me to read this? Okay, I was passed a note. It says there's a quorum of the select board members on Zoom in case they want to address that and prevent an open meeting law violation. It's up to you. No one speaking to that?
Yeah, does anyone want to speak?
I think
Mr. Chairman.
Vignani, would you like to come off mute and address this, this finding? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
we can hear you, Joe.
We're not going to make any deliberations tonight. We're just here listening as citizens as well. So we don't have comments. If they're personal comments, they'd be individuals and not as a board.
Okay.
For those in the room who may not have been able to hear, because it's a little quiet on the volume on our end, the chair of the select board responded that they are not planning to deliberate on anything jurisdictional to them. So any comments on their own that they say are on their own as individuals, not as select board members, and would not be an open meeting law violation.
Thanks, Joe.
Welcome. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Lopez, the floor is yours. Yeah.
Thank you, and good evening, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Israel Lopez with the Gutierrez Company on behalf of the applicant. The only thing I would add, just in the form of additional background and summary to augment the vice chair's comments, is there were, in addition to those broad topics that were laid out, there were significant numbers of improvements to the plan set that we submitted initially, and we haven't talked about all of those at each of the hearings, but I think it's fair to say that there isn't a single sheet on that drawing set that hasn't been modified with additional notes and clarifications at the request of the commission and the peer reviewers. And we also exchanged a number of comment memos with the conservation agent, responding to emails and comments from the agent with respect to changes to the plan. So I feel pretty good about where we are with the commission and all of the work that we've done with the plans. I will turn it over to Will Park with SMMA, our civil engineer, just to give a quick overview of the changes that were made in response to the last hearing, touching on what the vice chair indicated were some increases to the subsurface detention system to get that hydrology level to be net zero even in the 100-year storm. So with that, I'll just turn it over to Will Park with SMMA.
Good evening. My name is Will Park, Senior Civil Engineer at SMMA out of Cambridge. Good evening. So it's been mentioned a few times that we had one more round of revisions and review, revisions from our firm and review from GCG Associates. Some of the comments in their last letter were duplicative or all or overlapped quite a bit. So our latest memo dated March 6th, we kind of grouped them into 4 buckets. One has to do with the Mass DEP Stormwater Handbook Standard 2 related to peak discharge rates. As it's been mentioned, we reviewed the hydrology model one more time, and by adding a trench drain towards the bottom of our driveway, we were able to capture more area. And as it's been mentioned, the subsurface detention system at the bottom of the access drive has been was increased roughly 8-fold, 4 times the footprint and twice the depth. And that was the necessary storage to get the 100-year peak discharge rate below existing. It was already satisfactory in the 2- and 10-year storms, but that's what was required to get the 100-year storm below. Next topic was groundwater recharge. Standard 3, recharge to groundwater. GCG asked just to confirm that at least 65% of the impervious areas are routed to infiltration basins. And we didn't make any changes. We just recirculated our original groundwater recharge and drawdown calculations, highlighting the cell where it states that we're routing 75% of the proposed impervious surfaces to infiltration. Next bucket was standard 4, total suspended solids removal. We disagreed that the third-party testing for our proprietary pretreatment devices did not provide 81%, but that's fine. To compensate for that, we the design now daisy chains 2 pretreatment water quality units back to back, each providing 50%. So that treatment train now has the deep sump catch basins at 25% removal, a water quality pretreatment at 50%, followed by another water quality pretreatment at 50%, for a total of 81% TSS removal in each of those 2 treatment trains. The last and final bucket was just very miscellaneous items throughout the drawings, installing very small, there's a few outlet control structures that have very small orifices where the water leaves the system and goes downstream. They're very small because of the very small numbers we're dealing with here in the peak discharge rate summary. GCG recommended that some of those smaller orifices have a trash rack to prevent, help reduce the risk of clogging. So we looked up, or we researched trash racks that are appropriate for these installations and noted those accordingly in the details, on the detail sheets for those outlet control structures. There were several comments regarding the impermeable liners that will be used below the surface detention basin and fully wrapped around the subsurface detention system. Again, that's because they're partially, they're low enough that they're partially within the estimated seasonal high groundwater table. GCG asked that we provide additional notations on the drawings to ensure water tightness of those. So we installed some additional notes based on our personal experience with these installations and from manufacturers' recommendations to, again, I think I mentioned at the last hearing, these sheets of impermeable liner are huge. You know, they probably cover the whole floor of this building. So it's unlikely that a single sheet won't cover the bottom of the surface basin or fully wrap the subsurface basin. But if it does, we included notes that the 2 sections have to be overlapped and a watertight sealant or tape be, a 2-sided tape be installed between the overlap, or a single-sided sealant tape be installed on either seam to ensure water tightness. And I might be getting ahead of myself a little bit. GCG just recommended that there be a condition that all of the components of these systems, the impermeable liner, the outlet control structure, the boots that receive the inlet and outlet pipes, all be reviewed for water tightness, and that a professional engineer observe the installation and certify that it was installed in accordance with the drawings and the manufacturer's recommendations, and we're in complete agreement with that. So we submitted that package on the 6th to GCG in the town, and since then, on the 11th, I believe, GCG submitted a comment letter. Rather than paraphrase their thoughts, any reason not to ask Mike to chime in on his review?
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you.
Mr. Carter, would you like to come off mute? Yeah.
Good evening. My name's Mike Carter from GCG Associates. Will has described things very well. Basically, they've addressed our comments with respect to the stormwater, increasing the sizes of things, adding things. They have demonstrated that there is no net increase in the rate of runoff leaving the site during a 100-year event. We do recommend a couple conditions, and Will just mentioned the one that's with respect to the infiltration system. And I think that in our letter, there's another condition that references, I'm just verifying some test holes when they construct these infiltration bases, just to confirm, more confirmatory test holes than anything, to make sure that it's separated from the water table, or the water table is what we believe it is, which we have no reason to think differently. But I typically recommend that, and especially in these big infiltration systems, it's very important. But they have addressed our comments, and our letter basically says they resolved all the issues that we had outstanding.
Thanks, Mike.
That's all I had to say. I believe Israel has additional, or did you? No?
Sure. Go ahead, Gene.
I have a couple of questions from what you said and what you put in your report here. The trash racks that you discussed, are those on the outlet from the infiltration systems?
One is in the outlet control structure of the surface basin, the only surface basin
Yep.
in our design.
Yep.
GCG acknowledges, and we agree, that there's a 24-inch diameter pipe at the bottom of the basin. That will have a trash rack, but those are typically, quite large, like 1-inch diameter, maybe 1.5 openings.
Yeah.
So if something were to get through that, leaves, animals, whatever, they could then clog a 1-inch orifice
Right.
in the structure. So we have a trash rack that covers quite a, it's I think a foot by a foot covering a 1-inch orifice to make sure it doesn't
So
get
it's
clogged.
set aside from the actual opening so that if something does get stuck, there's another way for water to get through.
Correct. There's, inside the outlet control structure, there's a weir wall just
Okay.
going right down the center of it, and the trash rack will be mounted to that weir wall,
Okay,
on the face of it.
okay.
Side mounted is what they call it.
The reason I ask is because are these going to be in a readily accessible location to check and clean if necessary?
Yes, this outlet control structure is directly next to the driveway.
Well, that one is out in the open, but what I was wondering is, I thought you said it was also for the infiltration systems, and they're all underground, right?
The outlet control structures will have a standard drainage manhole cover on them, and they're part of the,
From the infiltration chambers.
correct.
So somebody needs to pop the lid and look down in there to see, make sure it's not clogged.
Yeah, they're part of the, they're referenced in the operation and
Okay.
maintenance manual. They'll be observed and cleaned as necessary
Right.
periodically throughout the year.
I just don't like underground systems generally because out of sight, out of mind. People forget things when they don't see them. That's my opinion. But the other question I have is regarding the material that's going to seal the chambers, make them watertight.
Impermeable liner,
Yeah,
yes.
Thank you for correcting me. Correct me if I'm wrong, wouldn't a manufacturer have a mechanism for sealing a seam?
What I described is the manufacturer's recommendations.
Oh, it is?
Some of them supply their own double-sided tape or single-sided sealant tape, but yeah, it's right out of their recommendations.
Okay, so they have a procedure and you'll follow that procedure to do, okay, fine. I just wanted to make sure that, because I know like a liner over a hazardous waste site, it's a different process. I believe they use like an ultrasonic welder to actually weld the liner so that it's essentially becomes one piece and not two pieces glued together.
Yeah, for a hazardous material that might be required
Right.
for for stormwater. The
Less
double,
of
the
a
sealant
concern.
tape, this isn't like Scotch tape like this. It's
No, I know.
a 4-inch thick, you don't want to touch this with your bare hands, sealant tape.
Yeah,
And like I
Okay.
said, it either goes between the two overlaps or goes on like the seam there and the seam under here.
okay. And there's no folding of it,
It's overlapped at least 6 inches.
but not, and then folded back on
No,
itself?
I think
or
having
anything?
it just two clean sections on top of each other
Okay.
is the cleanest way to do that.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's it.
Anyone else from the commission like to ask a question? Anyone online? Bill or Gabe? Hearing none?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay, sure, go ahead, Carl.
Just so that we're clear, because we did speak about this in an earlier meeting, one of the concerns, and Mr. Lopez, you and I have had several conversations that I think were very good conversations about the concerns of both blasting and flooding, the concerns of most of the people that have been following this. They're concerns of ours as well. But for the record, there's not going to be a lot of blasting, correct? If I remember correctly from that discussion, most of the blasting was just to lay utilities, and that was fairly limited.
That's correct, and I'll give kind of just a general yes answer to that, and Will can fill in additional details, but that's generally correct. And we've also, just going back to the presentation made by our geotechnical engineer, there was, the site has sort of a bedrock contour that kind of bisects the site, which, kind of comes up in the central part of the site, bisects it from sort of Waverly Street over to East Union, and then falls off from there. And what we've demonstrated with the test pits that we've done, I think there are about 23 different areas within the site that we've done test pits to establish the bedrock layer of the site. And that's, thank you for bringing that up. That was what I was describing, and the brown line that kind of bisects the site is what I was referring to as the sort of the ridge, if you will, that cuts across the site. So principally what we've done, and this was sort of a foundational design element, was to raise the building above as much of that bedrock layer on the site as possible. That's why the site entrance is where it's located along Waverly Street, and that's really the chief way in which we've minimized the amount of any kind of bedrock removal at the site. So what this plan demonstrates is the blue lines are what you were referring to as being the utility trenches where we expect some bedrock removal. That can be done without blasting. Those can be hammered or removed mechanically. And so in general, we don't expect much of any blasting to occur on the site. Having said that, as part of the conditions within the ZBA comprehensive permit, we have to provide a blasting plan that has to be sent to the fire department and the police department and approved by both of those departments, in addition, of course, to the town, to review any blasting procedures that would be taking place on the site. That would include a survey where we'd notify people within a certain radius and kind of all the very detailed standard requirements for that.
Okay, I would just suggest that if you have to deviate from that plan at all, that the Conservation Commission be involved in those further discussions so that we can revisit what we've already talked about and see if that potentially would change anything as far as any stormwater runoff or groundwater breakthrough from that. Is that
Certainly,
agreeable?
yes, yeah, we're agreeable to that.
Okay. I guess my other comment is a comment and not a question. I know that you're tired of me talking about stormwater, but it is a concern, it is a big issue, and we want to get this right. I know that when I was before the select board, to talk in general terms, The concern was, how can you, and you've heard me say this before, how can you take that much pervious surface and make it impervious and not flood everybody down at the bottom of the hill? And I wasn't able to effectively discuss that in that meeting, but just so that we're all clear on this, is that it is through infiltration basins for the most part that collect this water and infiltrate it back into the ground, instead of having it running down the driveway and down the roads. That's what we've worked really long and hard to get right, and we appreciate you. I know it's been something that we've talked about a lot. We appreciate you working with us on those issues.
And we want to make sure that we get it right also, and we certainly understand the commission's concern. We've seen the photographs and the video of what happened at the site down by at the public safety building. Certainly want to make sure that nothing like that happens on our site. We've talked about how our two sites are different, and some of the challenges that site had that our site does not have. But putting all that aside, we certainly understand that, and that's why we've sort of gone the extra step of putting, just in this last iteration, trench drains at the bottom of the driveway to capture that last bit of runoff at the bottom of our driveway. I think if you compare, we've increased the size of that subsurface structure, as Will mentioned, significantly. And if you compare the footprint of that structure in the first set of plans that we submitted to this last iteration, it's 4 times larger, precisely to try and get at that. So we want to make sure that that area at the entrance to the project site is dry and is safe, and we think the plans that the design changes that we've made go to all of that, in addition to the replacement of that concrete pipe, which I should also mention as an additional improvement that we've talked about. We're putting in a new catch basin and sewer manhole near the entrance to the site, again, sort of improving that overall condition at that location.
Okay. As you know by this time in your hearings, both with us and the ZBA, probably the two outstanding concerns of the town are traffic and stormwater. We don't have any jurisdiction over traffic, but we do have jurisdiction over stormwater, so that's why we've been relentless in dealing with that, so thank you. I think that's all I have for now.
Anyone else from the commission like to ask a question? Sure, go ahead, Preston.
Just want to follow up on something that Carl said about, how do they take this much surface and make it impervious and not create huge amounts of runoff. As you mentioned, infiltration is one big part. The other thing is the state law regulates what the peak runoff is. So a lot of their system is designed to hold the water and discharge it slowly, so that the peak runoff at any point after the storm is not larger, but that means that it's discharging water for a longer time after the storm. We have a local bylaw that says that the total discharge can't also be increased, but the local bylaw has been waived by the ZBA, so that has not been a factor, and we haven't looked at those calculations because they're not jurisdictional in this case. So it's just for general understanding of anybody watching this.
Anyone else from the commission? One more? Yeah, Gene.
Yeah, I have another question. In going through GCG's comments, something hit on me about using a low permeable material in a core in the berm for the basin. And then you're going to obviously have an outlet pipe through that. I don't know how you were planning to build it, but I would suggest you build the pipe in the berm as you build the berm, and not build the berm and then dig it up and put a pipe in it. Because now you've compromised the core in that berm by digging it up and weakening it I was involved in a project that a basin was built that way. It was an elevated basin like this. It failed miserably and flooded into a wetland and put a ton of sediment out in a wetland. So the way to build this is to, as you bring your lifts up and compact them, you put your pipe in and you build it with your lifts as you go. And so it's done when you're done.
Agreed.
Okay. So I just want to make sure you do that, because I know that could be a huge failure problem if it failed, because you're right on the edge of the wetland.
Yes, agreed.
Anyone else from the commission? We good? Okay, I will now open it up to the public. If anyone would like to come to the microphone or raise their hand on Zoom, if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, you're welcome to do so.
Mark Dasoni online has his hand raised.
Mark Dasoni, you can come off mute and ask your question.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mark Sony, 119 Main Street. About the floodplains, when there's a loose floodplains in one spot and you gotta be blasting maybe in that other spot, in the spot near it, what's the regulations of doing that correctly? And we're responsibility that nothing will be pushing against each other.
Mark, this is Carl. There is no floodplain issue in 61 Waverly Street. The floodplain issue is in 10 to 60 Main Street. So, so do you want to rephrase the question? Does it have to do with blasting or floodplain?
Okay, with the blasting and wouldn't they have to go out there and do surveys and make sure the soil and all that is going to be correctly suitable?
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussion of that in earlier hearings. They brought in their hydrologist. They've done a lot of work in the makeup of that site, the bedrock. We raised the issue of concern of what happened at the flooding over at the public safety building when the blasting went on over there. So the applicant is well aware of that. It's a different situation with much, much less potential blasting there. And what we've asked this evening is if once this project starts, if it's outside the scope of what they are giving to the police and fire as a plan, that they come back to the Conservation Commission as well to make sure that there's no negative impact from blasting and flooding.
So, let's see, the peer information counselors that is here, you get that information also?
We have to be careful here, Mark, because we really don't have jurisdiction over blasting per se. We only have jurisdiction over the impact that blasting may have on stormwater and groundwater.
Okay, now, will GCG, what's
GCG,
the,
yep.
yeah. Will they get that same information at the same time the COMCOM people will get it, if in case it's needed?
If I remember correctly, they did weigh in on that. GCG has been at these hearings all along the way and has weighed in on that. Mike, do you want to comment on that anymore?
I think some of the conditions that we're recommending would address some of the ledge questions. And there, if you follow the recommendation, you're going to either require their consultant, a PE, to stamp it and verify it, or if the commission deems necessary, it could be an outside person that goes and reviews it, or someone from the town. But I think, as Carl indicated, we've been pretty conscientious about the ledge. They're putting clay barriers along the pipes to prevent any potential water, groundwater breaking out where they blast ledge. We've done everything from an engineering standpoint at this point that you can do. And the important thing is that things can be different in the field, and we have some conditions that we recommend they put in that if those conditions change, that they can be addressed.
Does that answer your question, Mark?
That answers it. My last little comment would be, there could be something out of the ordinary that could happen if not seen or foreseen. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
It's hard to predict groundwater, much harder than stormwater.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Anyone else online like to ask a question or in person?
I see no one else with their hands raised and no one at the podium.
Okay. So what's left to do is continue this. Did you want to speak? Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, I was just, if you had anything more to say, I was just going to kind of
Yeah.
go to the next steps, but sure, you're absolutely go, if you have
Thank you.
something
So
else.
I have jotted down the two comments regarding conditions that were made this evening. I also have gone through all of the memos and correspondence and sort of made a list of all the things that we've talked about and agreed to during the hearing that could be conditions within an order of conditions for the project. And I think I'd be happy to share those just for the sake of sort of helping the agent go through that and the commission go through that. But I think we're at the point where we've provided, all the information that the commission has requested, and I think we've closed out all of the issues that have been put before us, and I would request that the commission vote to close the hearing and begin its deliberations on our project.
Okay, did you want to go through your remarks first? The
Sure, I can.
specifics? Yeah,
Sure.
yeah,
Can I ask a question first?
yeah, go ahead.
Before we go into talking about conditions and things, at the last meeting, I asked about looking at relining or rehabilitating the culvert under Waverly Street. I would just like to hear what you have to say about that.
We appreciate the question. We did look at it. I think for a variety of reasons, we concluded that it was a pretty major undertaking that we didn't feel the project was able to support. It's possible that, well, just to back up, I think we all agree that the culvert is sort of showing its age. It's been around, I don't know, a significant amount of time, maybe more than 100 years. But it is functioning in its current capacity. It's a pretty significant piece of municipal infrastructure. It may be that a sleeve could work. The culvert does have a little bit of a jog in it.
It does bend. I haven't seen it, so I wasn't
We've been
sure.
in it and we've walked through it. And in kind of thinking through your questions, we looked at these photographs again, and so there's some protrusions and things that
Right.
that would sort of narrow that. If you were to put in a tube, it would narrow it. But it's possible. It's a pretty complex undertaking. And I think it's the kind of undertaking that the DPW should really undertake, decide what they want to do, if anything at this point is needed. The connections into it are also pretty tricky. There are a couple of different pipes that connect to it. And, just for a number of reasons, it's a pretty complex undertaking. We feel the best thing that we can do is control the runoff from our site, make sure that we're not contributing any additional flow into that structure. And so we've done that. And with the RCP repairing that piece of it, it should improve the condition in that location.
Now, to replace the pipe that you've offered to replace, you're gonna have to tap into the side, is that correct?
We're going to tap into the last segment of pipe that currently goes into the culvert.
Oh, so you're not
and-
actually gonna do anything in the culvert connection itself?
We're going to put a collar in
I got you.
to connect into that and leave that piece of it undisturbed so that we're not undermining it or doing anything to,
So that last section is in good shape?
yeah, you can,
Oh, that's it?
that's it.
Okay. Well,
So
that's
all
it.
of that kind of disjointedness that you can see, that all of that will be replaced.
Yep,
And it'll just be that one segment with a collar that will be set in level.
okay. Okay,
A couple of follow-up things on that. What initiated that discussion was initially the potential increase in rate of runoff at that site. And so what they've done is work on the other end, decrease that,
right.
so that there is no net increase. The other thing, I guess for the record, and I'm not sure if he's on the call or not, but I did speak with the head of DPW this week about, after we got your plans, to see if he was.
He's here.
If he, is
Doug's
he-
here.
Oh, so Doug, do you want to speak to this issue?
Sure, come on from you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Carl. Yeah, I mean, I thought Gene asked a really good question there about how far to the culvert are they actually gonna go? So that was good information. I was under the impression that we were gonna be able to see the inlet side during the construction, but as far as like you said, Carl, by decreasing the peak flow or making it level, that kind of changes things in our, like, whose responsibility is it, you know? So, and obviously this is a very complicated culvert. I don't have an answer yet. It's something that the town, we're gonna have to plan appropriately, you know, as far as figuring out when we can replace that actual culvert or shore it up. Like you said, sleeving it could be the way to go. That would be a home run. And Gene, I know you mentioned the interlocking and all that, but the way it lines up was not ideal for that, from what I understand. But so it's you know, I can't give a solid answer or plan or whatever. I just think it's something that we're going to have to spend some time on and you know, maybe somehow fit it into a 5-year capital plan.
Well, they have agreed to replace the 12-inch pipe, and they'll have to work with the DPW with regard to that.
And I thought that was great, to tell you the truth. I thought I was thankful to hear that.
Okay. Thanks, Doug.
Anyone else? Yeah. Okay, so, yeah, you mentioned a desire to close the hearing, and we're with you on that, but typically when we close a hearing, we follow up with an order of conditions, and I think we're gonna need some more time to pull together a draft. And so, I think it's wise to keep the hearing open until then. So we can put you on the schedule on our off-cycle meeting and take care of that.
Okay, so should we then expect to receive the draft in the interim between this hearing and the next hearing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
To the commission, just to add on that, the other reason to continue rather than closing the hearing is once you close the public hearing, you only have 21 calendar days to issue your decision. If you're keeping your current cycle, your next hearing would be in 14 days, so you wouldn't have much time to get through all of those conditions. So it's just for the benefit to make sure that we're all in agreement with what's being decided on for that.
Okay. So with that, I I can go through the list of conditions that we've discussed and agreed to during the hearing, or I can provide this as a document.
Why don't you provide it as a document?
Yeah.
Okay, so we need a motion to continue then.
Yeah, so we're looking at March 30th. Is that our next off cycle? Yeah, I think.
That is correct, March 30th.
March 30th, okay. How does that work for your team?
That works for me.
Okay. Okay. Do I hear a motion to continue notice of intent 61 Waverly Street, map 15, parcel 12, the Gutierrez Company, DEP file number 95-1016 to March 30th at 7:05 PM?
So moved.
Second,
Roll call vote?
Ackerman, aye.
Crow, I.
Crouch, aye.
Atkinson, aye.
Moulton, aye. Toledo, aye.
Wands, aye. Motion passes, and this hearing is continued to March 30th, 7:05 PM. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. We want to take a
Yeah,
recess?
yeah, I think right now, we're in between our two hearings, and we would like to take a short recess, if you all don't mind. Yeah. Welcome, everyone. We're back from our break from the Ashland Conservation Commission meeting. We just concluded one hearing. And now we're going to move on to our second agenda item. We have notice of intent, 10 to 60 Main Street, map 14, parcel 128, SLV Ashland LLC, care of Lucas Environmental LLC, DEP file number 95-1018. And as previously done, I'm going to turn the microphone over to the vice chair.
Thanks, Greg. Again, that's the 40B. This is the second hearing for 10 to 60 Main Street. Previously, after introductions, we agreed to stipulated facts, which included, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lucas, we agreed that the majority of the site was within a floodplain, that the Conservation Commission has jurisdiction over activities that alter floodplain. 2, 3, the site is contaminated. 4, the site is within the 100 and 200-foot riverfront area. Those were the 4 facts that we agreed on. We were unable to come to an agreement on the 5th fact, which was the site and the buildings have flooded historically. Having said that, to that point, we did receive, for the record, an email from the president of the Ashland Historical Society with regard to the pictures that we showed at the last hearing, authenticating that they were pictures of the Lombard building, which is 10 to 60 Main Street, and that they were the property of the Ashland Historical Society. So that is now part of the record. We then again set a sequence for discussion, topics of discussion, which were 1, contamination, 2, stormwater, 3, floodplain, and 4, wetlands and riverfront. Following that, we had a request for documents, which included the RAM report, which is a release abatement report. We asked for a peer review for wetlands. We asked for a peer review for stormwater. We asked for a peer review of the RAM report itself. And we asked for all correspondence between the applicant, the LSP, the DEP, and the EPA regarding the RAM report. I believe that the applicant agreed to at least to consider peer reviews for wetlands and for stormwater, was looking for scope of work from the Conservation Commission. There was not an agreement as to a peer review for the RAM report at that time. We then scheduled a site visit for Saturday, the 21st, and then we set a date for this meeting. And that's all we have for this hearing to this point.
Would the applicant like to respond? Yeah.
Yes. Good,
Okay.
good evening. Excuse me. For the record, my name is Chris Lucas with Lucas Environmental, professional and certified wetland scientist and registered professional soil scientist. Just going to pull up the screen here, and we have a presentation.
Before you conclude, present, Mr. Lucas, do you agree with the summary?
We generally agree. When John Cusick and I at the last meeting stipulated to the site being in the floodplain, our intent to clarify that was we do agree the site is in the floodplain. I think we may have a disagreement as to the building. I'll get into more detail as to that, but we do not believe the building floods or is part of the floodplain.
Okay.
So,
Okay, Pierre, the floor is yours.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Let me just pull up the share here. Okay, everyone can see that there? There we go. Okay. So tonight, we're here on behalf of the applicant, SLV Ashland LLC, and Jeff Engler is on virtually on the call. We're also here with John Cusick from Bowler Engineering, the engineer of record. We're also here with George Campbell from Campbell Environmental, the licensed site professional for the project. So, flip through. I'm gonna give a somewhat short presentation. I'm not used to this computer here. Give me 1 second. So we're here for 10 to 60 Main Street. As you noted, there is a Mass DEP file number 0951018. This is the existing site highlighted in the pinkish colors. It's labeled 50 Main. That's a relic from the ZBA process, but we are working with 10 to 60 Main Street. We've corrected that with the application. The parcel itself is approximately 7.8 acres in size. It's located, just so you're clear, north is to the left on this. It's not up. It's to the left. So we are east of Main Street. We are south of Myrtle and Mill Pond. We are north of Concord Street, and we are west of Raymond Marquetti Street. So we're kind of tucked in that area, as many of you are familiar with the site. And if you're not, you will be come Saturday morning. The developable area of the project site is currently very disturbed and consists of impervious materials, including areas with soil contamination. The site is accessed through two main access points, driveways. One's here off Main Street, if you can see that on the cursor, and another one is located here toward Mill Pond, and that provides access to the north and south parking lots of the site. As we've mentioned, the site does consist of a historic mill complex, and that has pertinence for the Wetland Protection Act regulations, which I'll get into, and the site has fallen into a state of degradation. There's an existing mill, approximately 91,000 square feet on the site, and the gross floor area of the whole property, the buildings, is 177,000 square feet. The mill has currently been converted into a complex that houses several various businesses, and the Sudbury River is located along the eastern property, borders the eastern property of the development. As you've noted, the project is subject to, went through a comprehensive permit application with the ZBA. And because it's associated with the 40B comprehensive permit application, all local permits and approvals go through the ZBA. A decision was issued by the ZBA in January of this year, in which they approved all the waivers for the requirements of the local bylaws that were stipulated through that process. And as such, we're here solely tonight under the Wetland Protection Act. The existing site, just run through so this is a graphic showing some photo locations. There's 4 photo points on here. The first one's number 1 is up here near Mill Pond, facing south towards the site. Second one's along Main Street, facing east towards the site. Third one is facing northwest, and the fourth one is down towards the other end of the project, facing northward. And this is that first one, to give you an idea of the site if you haven't seen it. This is the second one, facing east, northeast, and then this one's facing up north towards the Mill Pond. This graphic is an aerial overlay showing the resource areas. This was compiled from the ORAD. This graphic does not show the riverfront through the site, just on the undeveloped areas. The existing conditions plan, which I'll get to next, does show the riverfront through the entire site. The area may not come out clearly on here, but there's a wetland located. There's a wetland located to the southern portion of the site, where there's a canal that discharges towards the Sudbury. The mean annual high water line of the Sudbury River has been delineated along the east. The riverfront area of 100 and 200 feet are offset from that mean annual high water line. That's also coincident with the inland bank. We also have land under water bodies and waterways down gradient of the mean high water line. And and we also have the FEMA 100-year floodplain. On this graphic, it's depicted in the yellow line around the building. There's no rare species habitat on the site. There's no certified or potential vernal pools. The site is not located in an area of critical environmental concern or an outstanding resource water. The site is not located in a surface water protection area or public water supply watershed, and it's not located in a Mass DEP wellhead protection zone. This graphic shows the existing complex. This portion of the building here is proposed to remain, as well as this one. The rest of the complex is slated to be removed. This shows the existing parking lot configuration along here, and there's also some parking along Main Street. We also show, as you can see here, this one does depict the 200-foot riverfront area through the entire parcel, not just the non-developed portions. One thing I would like to point out on this graphic, there's currently 3 discharges. The site doesn't currently have any stormwater management treatment. Most of the stormwater flows towards the back of the site. A small portion flows towards Main Street. There is a small existing drain located here. There's another one located, it's right here. And there's a third one located right here. So these currently, stormwater flows untreated through these drain pipes directly into the Sudbury River. There's also a fourth point here. There's an old pump house located here, which we'll see on the site walk. There's also a drain that's connected to this that discharges immediately adjacent to the main high water line. That pump house is no longer operational, but the drain pipe still exists. And there's some erosion there. I point that out because we will be discussing that a little bit more. This is, before I get into the, this is the right one. The overall site plan. This shows the overall configuration of what we're proposing. The redevelopment consists of a high-density, mixed-use project on a significantly degraded historic mill-use site. Our current program includes structural restoration and adaptive reuse of 2 historic mill buildings, roughly 11,000 gross square feet, for commercial and retail occupancy. We're proposing a 54,000 plus or minus square foot residential building with 250 apartment units with the project. You can see here, so this portion is proposed to be reused, and this will be the new portion of the building with the new residential units. This includes obviously paved parking areas, various amenities such as this little open plaza here, and associated utilities, and a new stormwater management system that meets all the state requirements. Site improvements include the stormwater management. We're also proposing some improvements to landscaping, lighting, and signage, and we're also reducing the impervious area on the site overall, which is a significant improvement. All point source discharges to the Sudbury are going to be retrofitted with tide gate check valves to maintain hydraulic capacity while preventing backflow and riverine intrusion during larger storm events. We'll discuss that further as well. So again, this is the overall site design. Parking will be through the perimeter and underneath the building. I'll get into some of the stormwater. I'm giving a high-level review. Obviously, the team's here if we want to get into more detail tonight, or we can save that to one of the future hearings on contaminants and stormwater and such. Regulatory compliance, we have no impacts to the bank, the BVW, or land under water bodies, so no further discussion is warranted. The 2 main components that we will be discussing through this process are obviously the floodplain and the riverfront area. We maintain that we fully comply with the performance standards for boarding land subject to flooding per Section 310 CMR 10.574 for the performance standards. Currently on the site, there's the owner has indicated that during the 2010 storms, which we're all familiar with, the significant March events that flooded everywhere, and in 2013, which was a 100-year storm, the building did not flood. We'll be working with him to get an affidavit to that effect. And we also wanted to discuss the possibility of getting documentation that no insurance claims were filed. So obviously if the building flooded, an insurance claim would have been filed for the damages. We can look into that if the commission feels that's a appropriate pathway to demonstrate that the building in fact is not flooding in a 100-year storm event. For the standards, we have provided compensatory storage, roughly 23,000 cubic yards is being proposed. We have just under 21,000 cubic yards required. We fully understand the need for providing foot-by-foot flood storage, and we've provided that for elevation 185 and above. I know there's been some commentary from DEP staff and others on the issue of what's occurring for those 3 pipes where floodwaters may flow through the pipes into the site at elevations below 185. Currently, and I didn't mention this, there's an existing wall that runs along the perimeter along the Sudbury River. That wall overtops at elevation 185. We maintain that the foot by foot is not needed, and John can get more into this because this was a lengthy discussion through the ZBA process that went through peer review with Hancock Associates to everyone's satisfaction. Comp storage is needed when, in the judgment of the issuing authority, there's potential to adversely affect flows at those lower elevations. In this particular case, those pipes are creating a restriction. So this isn't a typical case where floodwaters rise slowly. You have the pipes are down low, and they're a restriction in themselves to the floodwaters getting into the site. So based on that, we can get into further detail on this, but we believe it's been adequately done, and the tide gates are appropriate. We're open to more discussion with the commission and such on this matter. And we provided the comp. We're happy to provide the data for the elevations below that so the commission has the data, and we can do that moving forward. Riverfront area, as we stated, the majority of the site is located within a historic mill complex. This is very clear from aerials and the site development and the history. And per 310 CMR 10.586, certain activities or other areas are grandfathered or exempted from requirements for the riverfront area, which includes specifically activities within a historic mill complex. Therefore, the performance standards for riverfront area are not applicable, or not. We're exempt from them specifically in the limit of the historic mill complex, which are the developed areas of the site. We do have some minor work outside of those areas, and that work is generally for 2 purposes. One is to make stormwater improvements, which we think are significant on this site, and 2, for safety, for sightline. There was a lengthy discussion through the ZBA process about sightline distances and safety here onto Myrtle. So there's going to be some minor impact in this location, and then there'll be some minor impact for stormwater here in the riverfront and here, which are both improvements. In total, that area is 3,520 square feet, so it's fairly de minimis. 321 square feet is specifically for the stormwater improvements along the river. For the discharge locations. 242 square feet is for the sightline for the safety. And roughly 2,171 square feet is temporary impacts to the south along the canal to regrade that area. So it'll be restored. There'll be a pipe underground and then the flared end for the stormwater improvements. We meet the rest of the requirements of the riverfront area because right now the existing work, there's a drain pipe that discharges immediately to the river, which if you want to climb over the wall on Saturday, you can take a peek. We can show you where that is. We provided the table with all the documentation for those impacts. Regarding the release of basement measure plan, or the RAM plan, for the record, the site is located in a Notice of Activity and Use Limitation, or AOL, per MGL Chapter 21E, Section 6, and 310 CMR 40. Mr. Campbell's here to answer any questions on that. I know there's been some debate. In December of 2022, a report was submitted to DEP. DEP had comments on it. Mr. Campbell updated the report to address all their comments. There's been status reports submitted. The most recent plan was submitted in January of 2026, which the commission has a copy of. That report will, as I understand it, will need to be resubmitted to DEP because DEP wants that report submitted for review and approval within 1 year of construction. At this point, our anticipated construction is likely more than a year out, potentially 18 months. So it's too soon for us to submit to DEP for a plan. However, you have all the information that's going into that plan. Mr. Campbell can get further into detail on that. We've also reviewed the staff comments, and we fully intend to provide a response to those. We anticipate doing that concurrently with the third-party peer review. We think it'll be easier to provide a comprehensive package addressing all the comments that come in. We did have a question about the timing when you may anticipate the wetland peer review consultant fees to come in. The applicant is amenable to working with GCG in this case. We think the applicant's okay with that first review fee. However, we would request confirmation of additional for the second and third review fees in advance before we proceed. Because I know those things can fluctuate depending on the initial comment. I think that's a reasonable request. We also, if the commission would entertain, we would like to have a call with them prior to them digging and starting a detailed assessment. I think it would be useful for Bowler and GCG to get on a call just to discuss the overall project, the history, where we are, and go through some of the stormwater and the floodplain, and then allow them to do their review. We think it would, basically a working session with them, we think would be useful, or a short call to go through that material. We've also received the Mass DEP comments. Their general comment was similar to staff comments on the flood storage and the incremental for the lower elevations. And we'll continue to work with you on that. We'll provide the data, and then we'll entertain the peer review, and we'll work through that with the teams to hopefully reach a satisfactory conclusion on that matter. In summary, I believe that covers it. I don't know if you have anything else to add, John, but I think that's a high-level review of everything. Wanted to keep it as short as we could. Here to answer any questions, and obviously we'll get into the meat of these at subsequent hearings. As you noted, the contamination at the next one, stormwater. This will give us some time to flesh out some of the details on the floodplain for that third hearing. And I would still request, I still think we could do floodplain and riverfront in the same hearing, but just because I don't think there's a lot to the riverfront here. It's pretty straightforward, whereas the floodplain's a little more convoluted. This isn't a standard floodplain case here. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Carl.
Before we get into the minutia, which we will in subsequent hearings, I imagine, we sent a 7-page document with our comments on it. We didn't hear anything back. Why did you think that that was adequate response? We sent that last week. Because if we have fundamental differences of opinion on these things, we can't start a discussion on it if we're speaking from different palettes.
We acknowledge receipt of that. It was a lengthy document. As I stated tonight, we fully intend to address those comments. I understood tonight was not going to be a detailed analysis of that type of work, and we would present that material in more detail at future hearings.
Well, an email to us explaining that would have been adequate. Subsequent to that, you also, we asked for a RAM report. Your RAM report has been expired for 3 years, and it's for a previous project. Why do you feel that that was adequate to send to us?
Sure. Why don't you step up to the mic and introduce yourself?
Yeah. Good evening. My name is George Campbell, Campbell Environmental, and I think the permitting here has taken a lot longer than the client expected. So that's an explanation of so much time has taken place since the original grant plan. It's been updated. The client's done quite a bit of work during that time, continued to sample groundwater, also sampled soil gas. So there's been quite a bit of work that has happened during that time period. But as was previously mentioned, as we get closer, we're going to resubmit the RAM plan because obviously permitting isn't completed. And I understand there's issues that need to be resolved. So certainly understand that. But that's an explanation. I think the client certainly, it wasn't 40B, became 40B. There's been changes in the design. It's taken a lot longer than originally anticipated. But there's been a lot of work that's occurred during that time. If you could just please understand that. And the other thing I could say, just big picture, is this is an old milk complex. There's absolutely historical fill. There's going to be really quite a bit of cleanup if this project goes forward. It'll certainly improve surface water quality. So just keep that in mind. This is really a green cleanup. You're going to be improving soil and groundwater quality. There'll be soil removal, proper soil removal under the MCP, and also dewatering, treating groundwater. So this is really a good thing. It's environmental cleanup. So just please keep that in mind. I understand your question, and I can appreciate that. It took a long time. The permitting took a long time. It's still not complete. It's still probably going to take a lot longer than we originally anticipated. So that's why there was a delay. And I understand your question. I totally appreciate where you're coming from, but it's taken a long time.
Okay, Mr. Campbell, before you sit down, and to Mr. Lucas as well, this is a big deal in this town. You know you're in a 21E site, you know you're in the plume of a Superfund site, and you know you're in the shadow of a factory that's been there for 200 years. We have lived here in Ashland in the shadow of Nyanza for 50 years. It's a big deal to the people in this town. And it's a big deal that we get this right. So we have to know what's there. We have to know where it is. We have to know where it's going to be during your construction and where it's going to be after the construction. That's our jurisdiction. It's all in a floodplain. We need to know that stuff. So this stuff is not going to be discussed in one hearing. This is going to be a lengthy process, and we have to discuss that aspect of this process before we get into historic mill complex discussions or floodplain storage. Having said that, if we have a fundamental difference as to what's included in the floodplain, we need to flesh that out before we start having a hearing so that we're not standing here, playing tennis at these hearings. We need real figures and real evidence that this is going to be a green site when it's finished, and what's going to happen between now and then to make it a green site, where that stuff's going to be, how it's going to be removed. We have to know all of that stuff. And if it can't be in a RAM plan, because we expected to approve a RAM plan before we had any further discussion. If the RAM plan is not going to be submitted to DEP until all your permits are in place, this being one of them, then we're going to have some kind of a soil management plan that lays out what's there and a plan that people can understand. What's there, where is it, where's it going to be during construction, and where's it going to be post-construction? We need all that information.
I can appreciate your questions. I believe a lot of those were answered in the most recent RAM status report, but I definitely appreciate Nyanza, the impact it's had on the town. I absolutely appreciate that. This site is impacted by the upgradient, by no fault of its own, impacted by the upgradient Nyanza release. And the client is absolutely going to manage soil and groundwater appropriately in accordance with the Massachusetts contingency plan. So your questions I can completely appreciate, and we can certainly address those questions. I really can't speak to floodplain issues. I'm going to have to defer to Chris and the engineer.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
I just want to clarify. The information you're looking for is in the RAM reports we've submitted. And George, correct me if I'm wrong, if we were going to construction and within a year from now, DEP would theoretically approve that, as is?
That's correct. That's right.
So,
And I don't mean to interrupt, but the requirement, it's just too far in the future.
You're going to have to stand up.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. No one can hear you online. Yeah, yeah.
Just
start from the beginning again.
And I think you're aware of this, but the DEP's requirement is that they want the plan submitted as we're closer to construction. And not every single permit has to be issued, prior to submitting the RAM plan, but it needs to be closer to construction. And the rule is it can't be more than a year away. So what they want us to do is resubmit the RAM plan as we get closer to construction, just so you're probably
I
aware of
understand
that.
that, but we could use our own soil management plan that would not, see, we're not DEP, we're the Conservation Commission. We live here. We don't visit here, we live here. So we have to justify everything that we approve in the areas that we have jurisdiction over. We have to live with the people in this town. And so we have to have evidence that what we're doing is safe for the environment. We don't have jurisdiction over public health, but we do have jurisdiction over environmental health. And so we need specifics. To your comments on the RAM report, I've read the RAM report about 10 times, and there's not enough information in there for what we need. So maybe we'll have to work on offline as to what we do need.
I'm happy at another time to meet with you individually or respond to your questions, at another time. Absolutely.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Lucas, did you want to say something, or you wanted to, yeah?
No, I think that addresses the comments
All right.
so far.
Okay, I'll entertain any questions from the commission so far.
On the project or?
On the project, on what's been presented, the overview of the narrative for the project, for the notice of intent. Because we're sort of at the high level, right? So,
Yeah.
and we do have a site visit scheduled for this Saturday.
Yeah, one thing that I would like to see is, looking at the plans, there's nothing that shows a cross-section of the site. So I see buildings, I see some sort of a courtyard area in between the buildings. I don't know what the ground is. Is that the ground, or is that a floor? Is there parking under it? I mean, I don't know where the parking is because these plans don't show it.
We have architectural plans. We can provide some additional information.
Okay, that would be helpful. I'd also like to see a ground level surface. Now, you've got an existing conditions plan that shows that, but I'd like to see the final product ground level.
Okay. We can do that.
Surface, so showing, spot grades and all that sort of thing, whatever it's going to be. That's not included in this plan set,
Okay.
at least that I've seen.
Okay. I don't think that'll be a problem, John.
Okay.
We can provide that.
Anyone else? Yes, Preston.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention some things that were mentioned that I think may be items of contention, just as a heads up and to think about. Obviously, whether or not the buildings themselves are in the floodplain is an issue, because that affects a lot of of the calculations. You mentioned the exemption concerning historic mill buildings, and I've heard a number of people talk about to what extent that applies for the portions that are not being preserved with the old buildings. So there's, I know a number of residents have mentioned that in the past, so it's something we're going to definitely want to pay attention to. And what sounds like a little detail, the tide gates, which I assume basically is something effectively like a flap so that the water can go out the hole, but then water coming in is blocked. That affects the amount of water, if the river's flooding, that may keep water out of your site, but that's water that instead of coming onto your site is then going downstream. So that is a concern that it could be causing other problems, and that's something that obviously we'll have to look at and address. So that may be of concern as well. Those are the things that came up tonight that immediately raised flags that we're going to have to talk about. So I thought it was worth mentioning those now so that none of this comes as a surprise later.
Yes, thank you. I fully agree with the discussion items. I think based on comments we've received from the commission and staff and DP, the building in the floodplain will be further discussion, and the tide gates. Regarding the historic mill complex, it's it's not so much what's there now as far as the historic buildings. That's a historic issue. That's not applicable to the Wetland Protection Act. It really comes into whether or not you meet the definition of a historic mill complex, which we clearly do in this case. Therefore, based on the regulations, if you're in the footprint of that mill, it solely means you're exempt from the riverfront performance standards. That's all it means. It doesn't have anything to do with historic buildings and whether or not they should be torn down or not torn down. That's not the jurisdiction of the Wetland Protection Act. It really is more just to, are you in a mill complex or a historic mill complex or not? Yes. I think that's pretty clear here, but we can further discuss that. And then if we are, we're exempt from the Rivers Act and the performance standards within the footprint.
It would also just be interesting to get a sense of how important that detail is for the project. So I know some of the residents feel very strongly that they disagree with your legal interpretation. And I'm not a lawyer, so, and I don't know that we've had legal counsel of ours weigh in on this yet. But it's just, you know, if it turns out that there's a disagreement in the interpretation, but it doesn't actually change the outcome, that would also be useful information going forward. Just
right. No, that's good. And I do believe the peer review should resolve this. It's a pretty common thing we deal with the Rivers Act. So I think, you know, once you have it peer reviewed, I'm pretty confident they'll agree with us. And if not, we'll discuss with them and see what we can resolve. But I think hopefully that'll resolve the commission's concerns there. Hopefully the public's as well.
yeah, and if it does turn out that you're correct on that, then we definitely need to be very clear with the public as to the legal reasoning on that.
Right. And on the and playing devil's advocate, if we weren't a historic mill complex, I'd be confident we could meet the redevelopment standards of the riverfront anyway, based on what the site is and the improvements we're making. We have significant improvements, and actually, I didn't give you the number. Let me just the number here. We're reducing the impervious surface on the site by almost half an acre. And this is a pretty small site, so that's pretty significant in addition to the significant stormwater improvements. So, you know, we understand the commission's concerns with contaminants, and we're very, very well aware of that. I think we've put a comprehensive package together that acknowledges we're aware of these issues. We presented our facts. Now, obviously, we're going through the process. You have your comments. We have a discussion back and forth. We work with your peer reviewer, as you did with the predecessor here this evening. And, you know, our hope is to reach a consensus on all the points and make sure all your concerns are taken care of and addressed.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on the half an acre reduction, is that all in Riverfront?
It's across the site. I don't know. We'd have to calculate the number for the riverfront.
Because the Riverfront doesn't cover the entire site.
It does not. I don't think it's the whole. I think it's the whole. I think the half acre's the whole site. We can verify the number.
All right. Well, when we get to that,
but we can calculate it.
when we get to that part of the discussion, that would be good to know. Yeah.
Hold on, Mr. Lucas. What do you think is I think it would be a good first step for you to send responses to our comments so that we know what we agree on and what we don't agree on and what we have to work through. And so that being the case, how do you want to proceed here? I know that we have a site walk on Saturday, but we have some what seem like kind of serious disagreements here on certain things and clarification on what it is that we need to move forward if our first discussion is going to be contamination.
Well, my understanding, it seems like the main item we're disagreeing on is the building, whether it's in the floodplain or not. Regarding these other issues, I think...
one of 7.5 pages of things that we sent to you that we have an issue with.
Well, I believe we can address those comments. Our intent was to conduct the site walk with you this weekend because I think it'll be useful for the commission to see the site and have a better understanding of what we're discussing. And then the intent was to move forward with the peer review. And then concurrently, because I think we've done this, I don't know how many decades we've been doing this. It gets messy and a lot of paperwork if we're responding to one set of comments and revising the plans and then responding to another set. I think it would be more beneficial if we can conduct the peer review with the stormwater and your wetland consultant receive their comments and work with them, and then provide a comprehensive response to it all, to Ms. Solomon's comments, the commission's comments.
But aren't we jumping ahead of the contamination discussion by doing floodplain and stormwater? I mean, it seems to me that that's a ways off, those discussions.
Based on your schedule.
What was that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think moving forward on the contamination issue would be appropriate for the next hearing, while we look at those and hopefully engage the peer reviewer. That way, we can have the peer review completed, and then we can come back at that future hearing and discuss all the comments then. And hopefully, we can agree at that point. And
Okay,
if
well, we
can't, we'll
probably,
process.
before we have another hearing, we should decide on what it is that we're going to discuss at that hearing so that we're not all over the place. And then there can be kind of collateral discussions about the peer review things, but the topics remain the same.
Sure, I see Mr. Engler. Would you like to come off mute and make a comment? Yeah.
Mr. Engler, we're getting quite a bit of feedback from your microphone. If you can try turning down your speaker, then we should not have that feedback as long as we can still hear your mic.
Is that better?
Oh, yeah.
It's still weird, but it's better.
My speakers are off and my phone is off.
You're good now. You're not echoing. You're clear.
Okay. For the record, Jeff Engler, I'm the applicant from SLV Ashland. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, we understand your concern relative to the RAM plan and the overall condition of the site. I think one thing that my LSP, Mr. Campbell, did not communicate clearly enough is that DEP will not entertain an updated RAM plan until we are closer to moving soil around the site. And I can assure you, under no circumstance will we be ready to begin construction here, probably until September or October of 2027. Thus, the RAM plan cannot be completed for some time. However, with that said, Mr. Chairman, I understand the concern of the commission, and between the RAM plan status report, we can also talk to, we have not selected a general contractor, but we have somebody that has great experience with this type of thing, and we can provide some sort of, strategy and approach to the soil removal, to the stockpiling, and to the various handling of the contaminated soils. And we'll do that, and we'll see if it's adequate or if more detail. However, at this time, we do not know the full extent of everything in the ground. We do know there are things that don't need to be removed if we're going to be paving over it, or if it's under pavement. If it's exposed, or in an area like where our proposed outdoor recreation spaces, we're going to need to remove that. Where exactly that goes, we cannot tell you yet, because we do not know what that soil is. But depending on what is in that soil, it will need to go to a variety of different distribution centers, or not distribution, but centers that accept such soil. And depending on quote unquote how nasty it is, that's where it gets taken to. So we can lay all this out for the benefit of the commission and continue to have a discussion, but we are not going to have an official RAM plan during the course of this hearing, because that's the way DEP wants it. And they've told us that specifically, and we can get that in writing if it pleases the board. So with that said, I've heard your concern. We will do our best to address that. We will say, and somehow this keeps getting lost, under no scenario will this site be less clean in its finished condition than it is now. It will be more environmentally friendly when we are done than it is right now, yet somehow we seem to be getting taken to task for our approach here, but in no case will it not be in a better environmental condition. So with that said, Mr. Chairman, I'll shut up. We've heard your comments. We'll roll up our sleeves and see what we can do to begin to address some of these concerns.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Engler.
Greg?
Yes, Gene?
I kind of, I mean, I echo Carl's concerns about the site and what's been prepared and submitted to us. This soil abatement measure status report dated January 26th was prepared for Ashland Properties LLC, not for the applicant. Correct. I don't know what this project is that this was prepared for, but it does not seem to have been prepared for this project, and yet this was given to us as the RAM report. And there's very little information in here about what soil's being removed and where it's coming from and where it's going. These are the things that we need to know, and yet you can't tell us this.
Well, first of all, we're not the owner of the site. The RAM plan gets prepared for the owner. We are not the owner of the site. So I'm not sure what the commission's confusion is for that.
Well,
moreover, the site is the site and the soils
correct me
are
if
the
I'm
soil.
wrong, but a RAM plan should reflect a project, not just a site. You're doing things that the landowner isn't going to be doing. And you need to take precautions in doing those activities. And yet that should be in this report, I'm assuming. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
I understand the commission's concern and your purview for reviewing soils and where the water's going on the site. I feel like we're going in a circular argument about the procedure with the RAM process. If there's specific items, I would suggest if there's specific things you're looking for that we haven't provided, maybe append that comment letter, like to add a soil management plan. Mr. Campbell said we can prepare that. If there's other items in there that you would like to see, please provide it in comment form and we can look at it as a team and hopefully respond appropriately to it. I think that's the best method. We're not looking to hide anything here. This is the first real meeting we're having where we're getting into any discussion. We fully intend to address your comments. Hopefully we agree. But that's we think we've presented a very scientific and technical package for this commission to review. It's going through a third-party review to make sure we've crossed our T's and dotted our I's, and if we haven't, we will. And I think if there's specific things, Mr. Crouch, Mr. Hackinson, that you would like to see that maybe aren't in the RAM, we may not update the report. We're not going to update the RAM report. Well, we can provide that. We can provide the soil management. If there's other information, I would just provide it. Let us know specifically. If you want to go through it tonight, great. I think it might be more appropriate maybe to append that comment letter to ask for it specifically, and we'll have a written record so we're all on the same page, and the team can start working on a proper response, which, as I said before, we would, there's a cost into responding each time. We really think it would be more appropriate to do that and respond to all those comments from the commission with the peer review comments. I think it's appropriate, it's cost savings, it's what the applicant prefers. If we need to continue for an appropriate amount of time to do so to respond to that, then that's on the applicant's burden, but we would like to kick off the peer review here.
Yes, Gene?
Regarding the RAM plan, I understand you can't do it because the DEP won't accept it until it has to be within a year of the work. But all the components that go into the RAM plan have to get prepared. You can prepare those, share them with us, the soil management plan, your characterization of the site. Mr. Engler even mentioned that the site needs to be characterized.
So I just
Correct me if I'm wrong.
So do you want to? I was just going to say that my comment to that was the DEP commented on the initial RAM report, and it's been updated to address their comments. I think it more appropriate if the commission has information you want to see, rather than us filing and updating the RAM report at this time because it's premature, we will directly respond to those comments. So if there's specific things you would like to see that aren't in that report, comment to us and we will attempt to provide it.
All right, here's one thing. What's under the buildings? We know there were spills in those buildings.
I'd just like
Yeah,
to take a minute to respond.
I'll recognize Mr. Campbell. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So just this site, there's been a lot of work that's happened on this site, and not everything's reflected in the plan. There's a big file, DEP file, The site has obtained regulatory closure 15 years ago through a permanent solution. So it's a closed site. There was a lot of work done, way back in the 90s and 2000s. The work that's been done since then has confirmed those findings. And we have soil that's contaminated. It's an old mill building. That soil will be managed appropriately during construction. As Jeff said, you'll end up with a site that's a lot better than it is today. But it is, understand, it's a closed site. It's obtained regulatory closure. There's been decades of work that's occurred on the site. And we've been sampling twice a year since the original plan was submitted. We've been sampling groundwork. We've sampled soil. We've sampled soil gas. There's really been a lot of work that's occurred on the site. I'm happy to sit down, in person and go over the findings. This isn't adversarial. You'll end up with a much better site than it is today. It's going to improve soil and groundwater quality, which will improve surface water quality. So, I'm happy, with the client's permission, of course, to sit with you and discuss the data. But absolutely, the work, which is quite a bit of time away, probably late 27, will happen in accordance with the Massachusetts contingency plan.
Mr. Campbell, before you leave, again, I don't want to belabor the point, but I will reiterate it. It's a sensitive issue in this town. We bought a piece of property 15 years ago in this town that someone said was contaminated with arsenic. No evidence that it was, but they had to do a grid of the entire property, hundreds of soil samples, to show the rest of the town that this property was actually not the next Nyanza. And no one was living there, no one was working there, it's conservation land. But that was the hoops that the town had people go through in order to do that. I would expect that they would feel the same way about an area that's known to be contaminated. That's why we're being careful with this.
I can appreciate your concerns, and we certainly want to address them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the commission like to make a comment or ask a question? Online? Bill, Gabe? Okay, hearing none, I think we can move on to public comment. And I see a few raised hands on Zoom. Yeah, and people in the room. We got 2 people in the room. So we'll start off with the room. So I'll recognize, your name and address. Yeah, please.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Kimberly Lentros at 79 Hilldale Road. My dad was a kid in the 50s and lived at 6 Chestnut Street, which people now know as the Texas Meat Market. It used to be Dairy Queen, and long before that it was a house. And he used to tell us the stories of the mutant fish and toads and things that they would find playing in the river behind the house. And I bring this up because it's about a half mile from Nyanza. And this particular site is even closer. It's 0.2 miles from the Nyanza site, which was in operation from 1917 to 1978 as multiple textile corporations. It's listed on the United States EPA site with a laundry list of the chemicals that they found at the time and since as being admittedly dumped into the area and therefore as part of become the permaculture around. And for 50 years, that soil has been sitting and been containing itself, as you would hope after any kind of environmental fallout, things would just sort of settle and contain themselves. And I know for me, I'm concerned, I do hold space in one of those buildings and am close to the area regardless, that once that soil is disturbed, if they're doing soil testing on stationary soil that's been sitting and had other permaculture roll into it to help to sort of settle it to where it is, What happens when you start digging that up? And what kind of environmental fallout and impact will that have? And how can you anticipate or accommodate that potential?
Thank you. That's exactly what we're trying to get to in asking for these reports.
Thank you.
We don't have that answer, but hopefully we will.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Stay
Yes,
tuned.
thank you. Okay.
To the
Yeah.
commission, just before you continue with comments, I just want to remind the public, the commission has a 3-minute limit on comments. I will be keeping track of that.
Okay, sure, go right ahead. Yeah,
Joan Gonfrati, One Shore Road. I'm on the Historical Commission, but speaking as an individual resident. I reflect what Kim just said. I appreciate everything that she said, and I agree with it. I also want to say that if I understood correctly, I just heard that this was a closed site previously by the DEP, and I understand that it was, but I believe it was closed as a commercial site, not as a residential site. We are now looking at this site to put families with children in it. And if this site floods, or as they dig up the dirt and contamination and create a problem there, we had children die in this town from the contamination at Nyanza. And I think that we need to be very, very, very careful about what we're doing here. Thank you.
okay, thanks for your comment. So anyone else in the select board room like to make a comment? Okay, seeing none, we can move on to the online questions. I'll recognize Julie. If you want to come off mute and speak your 3 minutes.
Hello, this is Julie Nardone, 86 Elliott Street. What do we mean when we talk about the footprint? What is included in that footprint? And by what year did it have to be there? I am pretty sure I read that all the buildings included in the footprint had to have been there by 1947.
You want to
Okay, yeah.
I can actually read you the definition. Just give me 1 second.
While you're looking that up, Chris, Julie, we will discuss this thoroughly as time goes on, but Mr. Lucas is going to try to give you an answer here, at least for this evening.
Thank you.
Okay. Knew I had it here. Per the Wetland Protection Act, the property is within a historic mill complex, which, quote, means the mill complex is in, but not limited to, Holyoke, Taunton, Fitchburg, Haverhill, Methuen, and Medford, in existence prior to 1946, and situated landward of the waterside facade of a retaining wall, building, sluiceway, or other structure existing on August 7th, 1996. An historic mill complex also means any historic mill included on the Massachusetts Register of Historic Places. An historic mill complex includes only the footprint of the area that is or was occupied by interrelated buildings, manufacturing buildings, housing, utilities, parking areas, and driveways, constructed before and existing after 1946, used for any type of manufacturing or mechanical processing, and including associated structures to provide water for processing, to generate water power, or for water transportation. I think it's pretty clear the site meets that definition, and there's it's pretty clearly demarcated with the wall on the site. That's the limit we're using, is that wall, and then the edges on the north and south side. So it's pretty clear in aerial imagery. We've gone back prior to 1946. It's very clear, and we can provide further documentation if needed, but that's the definition of what the state Mass DEP Wetland Protection Act requires for a historic mill complex.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lucas. Julie, does that answer your question? That was the verbatim, description. Yeah.
Yes, my only other question is a dirt parking lot considered a parking lot?
Is a dirt parking lot considered a parking lot?
The regulations say parking areas. They don't specify, but it's generally the the parking areas associated with the mill are part of the complex itself, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it predates asphalt anyway, so, yeah.
So it's part of it, and that's common practice with this type of project.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, Julie, for your
We'll
question.
be discussing that further as we go along.
Okay, Mr. Mignani, would you like to come off mute and ask your question or make your comment?
I do have a couple of questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. I'm somewhat confused with respect to the conversation that was just had this evening. Specifically pointing to, I'm sorry, Joe Mignani, 2 Harper Lane, lifelong resident here in Ashland. I am a select board member, but I'm asking questions and clarification as a resident after for tonight's purposes. I have during the conversation tonight, there were several references to a RAM study that was already presented. If I remember, and I know Mr. Angler made a comment about that as well, and another gentleman that was at the podium. I guess, was that RAM report, was that for a prior project, which is totally different in scope and in nature on this land site? And if that's the case, then anything that the DEP has considered as a result of that, I don't know how that can be correlated to this new project, which is totally different from the previous project where this RAM report was filed. So I'm assuming that that RAM report was filed by a previous developer and or property owner. And from what I heard tonight from Mr. Engler, if I heard it correctly, that they haven't filed a RAM report yet, but are they basing their opinions and discussions on the previous RAM report on a project which is not in any way close to the scope of the project that that's in front of you folks right now? I just need some clarification and answers to that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mr. Campbell, you want to speak to that? I believe you did the original, right?
The plan was updated, and it's true, it's changed over time. And the original plan was not 40B, it became 40B. The footprint changed, but the most recent status report represents this project.
So a quick.
Oh, go ahead, Joe.
I'm sorry, Cal. A quick follow-up. So the changes that were made by the current developer that's in front of you folks right now? And if that's the case, am I to assume, and again, I'm not an attorney, but if you're using somebody else's RAM report and you're making adjustments and or statement corrections to that, I don't know if that's actually an accurate presentation that to be used for representing the current project. And I appreciate the candor from the gentleman that was just there saying that they've made, some corrections and stuff. Who made those corrections? And what corrections were made as a result of that? Because again, Mr. Crouch said that previously mentioned that you folks need answers to their questions, and not having the proper questions, answers to those questions are just gonna, I think you used the expression, you're gonna be playing tennis back and forth and without getting any proper response and or decisions to be made. So I just need that clarification. Thanks.
Joe, I think I'm going to try to answer that one, Greg. If I understood the explanation, I mean, it is confusing because it seems that the original RAM report expired after 1 year. So if it was done in 2002, it had to at least commence by 2022, commence by 2023. It did not. So all of these updates have been updates to a plan that seems to be invalid, and that makes that confusing. to your original point, the original plan was done by the building owner, not the applicant. So the building owner and the landowner is still the same person. It's just a different plan. But why it was amended with updates over the course of 3 years when it was invalid is kind of hard to follow.
To the commission, that was also the 3 minutes for Mr. Magnani.
Thank you, I appreciate your time.
Thank you,
Okay,
Joe.
thanks for your participation. Is there anyone else online who would like to ask a question? I see Mark DeSoni. You can come off mute. 3 minutes.
Okay. 3 minutes. It's kind of tough to get going.
Now
but
it's
I will
2
say
minutes and
this.
50 seconds.
Okay. This RAM report that is a major issue. They're trying to bury that, to put into place other lighter things to do in place of that. If this was in front of the ZBA, the State Housing Authority would be trumping that and say they don't have to do that. But this is this board, the Concom, and the history. Yes, we all know we lived through it. But I'm just saying to the developer and his team, don't discard the RAM report because of so many years and think it's stagnated. And the ground they want to work on, I said this last time, is the building itself on the ground will be certain to be contaminated near. And that part of the building question is the original foundation of the mill building and the pipelines that's underneath the ground, that should be RAM inspected by third parties and RAMs. So I'm just saying that they got to do that work underground in the main building, the foundation, to see what the RAM report actually is and have DEP actually tell them, not them telling DEP, but DEP telling them what to do. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Mark, you raised an interesting point. If this RAM report was part of the record before the ZBA, it was invalid. Did their peer review obviously didn't pick that up?
I wasn't fully involved in the entire ZBA process, but as Mr. Campbell indicated, you know, the intent was to start construction sooner. We're at a point now, because permitting has taken longer than anticipated, we're more than a year out. And again,
Yeah, but you're 5 years
I don't want to beat a dead horse with it, but we're happy to provide you the information you want. We just want to know specifically what you want.
Okay. Well,
So
we'll-
tonight,
we'll get
so
there.
far from this commission, what I've gathered, you definitively want a soil management plan, which we can work with. You also want to know some more detail of what's under the building. We're happy to provide that.
Okay.
If you have other comments on that remember plan, if you feel there's other things that are lacking that you would like to review that are pertinent to how soil is going to be addressed in the site, we'll provide it to us and we'll respond appropriately. We're not looking to hide anything. We're not looking to keep anything from you. We've provided the documents you've asked for. There's been some confusion on whether they're appropriate or not. We believe they are. If there's something lacking, this is part of the process. It's a back and forth comment. We respond and hopefully address your questions. So, we're in really the first step of this process tonight. And, we definitely want to work with you and move this along. We're not looking to be adversarial here. We want to work with this board. We want to satisfy you and hopefully get an approval here. Again, I would suggest maybe the board can work offline on a list of comments related to the RAMA plan and contaminants that your team can provide to us, and we can add to the list of comments and coordinate with the peer reviewer on.
Okay, as long as, if we can work on this offline, but we have to have that discussion in public forum, so everyone hears the answer to those, not just.
No,
the
absolutely, no,
Conservation Commission.
right. We can go through tonight if you want to get the comments out. I just thought it more appropriate as we,
No, I
the comments
think that
provided
we're
by
fine,
staff
as
were.
long as those questions are answered in a public forum and not on a website or in private someplace.
No, our intent is to respond to comments. Everything will be public. The response to Ms. Solomon's and the commission's comment letter will be public record. We'll have a written response to that. Ideally, as we've done in the past, normally what we would do is provide one package. It'll have a response to comments, to her comments, to the peer reviewers, to the wetland consultant, and we'll have a nice letter. Have each comment listed out. We'll provide a response to each one and the supporting documentation, soil management plan, maybe a revised plan set if there's some modifications to the stormwater, et cetera. And I think that'll provide a nice comprehensive package that can come back, and then, we can still have other discussions in the meantime with the board, but I think that's an appropriate way to proceed here, and we'll hopefully
So
resolve these
that we're
concerns.
clear, you want us to have the document that, the notice of intent peer-reviewed for stormwater as is. Is that correct?
We do. I don't think there's any.
Without consideration of our comments?
Well, I think that the peer review should receive your comments, but I think it would be appropriate for them to review what we've submitted along with your agent's comments and any other comments from the commission, and then we can respond appropriately to their comments with them. I think it's a better path forward. It's still getting all resolved. It may just take a little more time on our end, which is fine, but we want to initiate that peer review. Ideally tonight, if the board makes a vote to initiate that peer review, we would like to proceed. And I think it'll be in the commission's interest, because if they have additional comments or reiterate or, her comments, I think it's a path forward for all of us.
To the commission, just in response to the applicant's suggestion to have the peer reviewer be in receipt of the comments that I had submitted as well to them. That was not included in the scope that GCG provided for stormwater. I'm not sure if it would change the pricing, if they would need to spend an hour or so reviewing the 9 pages of comments submitted or not, just for the applicant's consideration.
I don't see an issue, but I don't want to speak for Mr. Angler. Jeff, I don't think that'll be an issue if they need an extra hour or two.
No, that's fine.
Okay. He said no, it's not a problem.
Thanks for the interpretation.
Just in case. As related to the peer review, I would just, if the board is going to entertain that tonight, we would appreciate it. And then on that matter also, we wondering if there's been any update on the wetland side, if there, who you may have reached out to and what the status is.
Through the commission, the wetlands, we did get a response from one wetland scientist firm. The scope they provided included stormwater, which is being done by GCG. I sent that back to them to request a revised scope that did not include the stormwater. So the applicant wasn't being charged for stormwater twice.
Thank you.
They stated they would get that to us. We just have not received it yet.
Okay. Who's the consultant?
That one is Beals and Thomas.
Okay. Okay, great.
Anyone else from the commission? More questions or comments? So we do have our site visit scheduled for Saturday, and if we want to, continue this hearing till our next off-cycle meeting on March 30th, we can entertain that if that's agreeable.
Let's approve peer review first before we continue the hearing.
Okay.
And with that, just to reiterate the two requests we made earlier, because I know there's been a lot of discussion. One would be, like we said, the applicant is fine with the initial peer review. We would just ask for consideration that the fees for the second and third review just be confirmed before we proceed. And secondly, we'd also, if the commission would entertain a call between Bowler Engineering and GCG to kind of kick this off. I think it'll be helpful for both parties to have an hour and a half call to go through the project, the history, how we got here through the ZBA, and then allow them to do their review unencumbered.
Yeah, that may be an add to scope, but
Okay,
It's fine with me.
all right, do we need a motion? Yeah, to approve, yeah.
Are we approving both peer reviews?
No,
Just
the
one.
stormwater for
Okay.
GCG.
Yeah, GCG.
I move that we engage GCG for stormwater review of 1060 Main Street project.
second.
Roll call vote?
Ackerman, aye?
Crow, aye.
Crouch, aye.
Atkinson, aye.
Bolton, aye.
Toledo, aye.
Wands, aye. Motion passes.
Okay, Chris, before you sit down, so let's have a path forward here for the next hearing as far as an agenda. So that we're not chasing our tail in 2 weeks.
I know initially you wanted to discuss the contaminants. I don't know how quickly we can pull something together.
Are we going to be ready to do that in 2
Can
weeks?
you be ready in 2 weeks to have a discussion on the contaminants?
What I'm hearing is you're requesting a soil management plan, but
They're going to get us comments on the additional information they want.
I'd have to talk to Jeff, but we certainly, from my perspective, we can prepare a soil management plan that addresses your concerns. 2 weeks is kind of a tight schedule, but
Yeah, you could say that again.
Can that be repeated into a microphone, please, for the public?
Yeah.
Maybe we should discuss at the next meeting the scope of the soil management plan. Does that work?
I think that works.
Does that work for everyone else?
I guess, sure.
Instead
Yeah.
of the specifics, because I think if you spent the next 2 weeks and never slept, you probably wouldn't be able to come up with an appropriate soil.
That works.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that the extent of what we want to do at the next hearing, or?
Yeah, I think that's appropriate, and we can have a discussion following the site walk if there's any additional comments or
Okay.
question or information needed. I would request, though, if the board can provide some comments before that hearing, it would allow us to better prepare and discuss at the hearing. So if you have, like we've heard, you want a soil management plan. If there's other comments on the soil contaminants on the site, I think it would be helpful to have even if it's a preliminary comment letter in advance of that meeting, would be very useful, I think, so we can have a good discussion.
But you don't want to provide commentary on our comments until you get the peer review?
Correct. We fully intend to comment and respond to them. I think it'd be more appropriate to do so once we have GCG's and potentially Beals and Thomas's review.
If it's appropriate, I would think that for the next meeting, we'd also like to have like an overview of what contamination is known to be on site, what potential contamination, what the unknowns are as well. As much for the public as for us. I think that's something a lot of people are wondering about, and just so we have a good sense of the scope. Probably be a good introductory presentation on that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and, if in lieu of a formal comment letter, if you just want to email us, Ms. Solomon, a list of the items the commission would like to see, I think we can be prepared. That we're not coming and saying we'll get back to you. If we can address everything, we will, and if we can't, we'll let you know during the presentation items we still need time to provide. But I think that would be a more efficient use of everyone's time if we have that preliminary items such as that. Those are good questions, and we can be better prepared to answer them.
Through the commission, I believe everything that was discussed and brought up by the commissioners tonight is included in the 9 pages that was sent in the comment letter last week. The soil management plan is listed in comment item 1G. There's more with other comments on contaminants in regards to dewatering in comment 9E1. There are others throughout the letter as well. So if you review that, I think you'll find your list.
Okay. I just want to make sure if that was a comprehensive list, then that won't be a problem.
We'll look at it, and if there's anything additional to what's in that, already in that letter, we'll provide that for you.
Perfect. That would be helpful. Thank you.
Bless you. Bless you.
Okay. Are we at the point where we can continue this hearing? Any other comments? So we're looking at March 30th at 7:05 PM. Okay.
Yeah, that works. Thank
All
you.
right. We have to say they're all at 7:05 PM, but I think the one before you should go pretty quickly. Yeah.
Okay. So they get to go first again? It's fine. Thank you.
I think the subsequent one, yeah, you'll be first, yeah, after that. Okay. So do I hear a motion to continue notice of intent 10 to 60 Main Street, map 14, parcel 128, SLV Ashland LLC, care of Lucas Environmental LLC, DEP file number 95-1018 to March 30th at 7:05 PM?
So move.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Ackerman, aye.
Crow, aye.
Crouch, aye.
Atkinson, aye.
Moulton, aye.
Toledo, aye.
Wands, aye. Motion passes. And the meeting's continued to March 30th.
Thank you.
And then
Appreciate
we'll
it. Thank you.
see you on Saturday.
Mr. Chairman, can we confirm the time for Saturday?
9:30.
9:30.
Yeah,
9:30.
that's right. Okay.
Thank you. We'll see you on
I
Saturday.
imagine we'll see you there then.
We'll be there. Thank you. Appreciate your time
Okay,
tonight.
all right.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. Anything else? All right, so we'll have to adjourn here.
The agenda had a set of minutes. Are those, I didn't notice them.
No minutes.
Okay.
No, not available
No
yet.
minutes, okay, so, and member prerogative, anything there? Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Ackerman, aye.
Crow, aye.
Crouch, aye.
Atkinson, aye.
Moulton, aye.
Toledo, aye.
Wands, aye. Meeting is adjourned.